right, so the Oklahoma Sooners got some great news on Friday as Kendel Dolby announced that he will be returning for one more season with the Oklahoma Sooners, one final run. Now, this actually is a critical piece to Brent Venables' defense continuing to take the next step forward into stepping into a top 10 defense next year. And we got to talk about it. We got to discuss it. Also, what's R. Mason Thomas doing? Additionally, what's going on in the transfer portal? Because Oklahoma just lost Ethan O'Connor to Miami, and then Marvin Jones Jr. maybe went to go see your biggest rival. So we're going to talk about all of that today. We're going to discuss it. Jump in the comments below. Join the discussion. If you're new to the channel, wipe your feet, hit that like, hit the subscribe button. 65% of you are not subscribed, and I want you guys to continue to have great content. And when you guys subscribe, it helps me bring you guys more great content. All right. Sorry if I sound congested, guys. I have a sinus infection, so it's just it is what it is. I get this all the time apparently now. That's just what it is. But Oklahoma got some news on Friday while I'm going to the Thunder game to go watch the New York Knicks and the Oklahoma City Thunder. Oklahoma City Thunder going to 14 games. Kendel Dolby announces he is going to be returning to the Oklahoma Sooners, and this is huge, right? And before we get into the news about RMT and these guys, I wanted to discuss this first because Kendel Dolby, I believe in 2023 definitely was his coming out party. 2024 was his year to, I think, really step up as a leader within this defense and really just I help Oklahoma exceed into a top 15, top 10 defense. And ultimately, he had that ankle fracture that he suffered against Tennessee that really kind of set him back. But for those who aren't aware of what Kendel Dolby did this season, just in 3 games, 10 total tackles, 7 solos, 1 sack, 1 pass breakup. Remember, he plays that cheetah position. So this is huge because he understands it well. He plays it really well. And you would expect Kendel Dolby will just continue to be a guy that can kind of, I'm not going to say be Isaiah Simmons, but play that kind of role in Brent Venables' defense. And when you look at kind of what happened with Kendel Dolby this upcoming or this season, according to PFF, he graded out really, really well. And I get it. It was only 3 games. Some of the competition wasn't super, super great. But I think it's worth noting that he really didn't have any bad games when he played this year. He did what he was supposed to. And then against Tennessee, against an SEC opponent, he had a 77.2 grade in the 15 snaps that he played, 78 tackling grade, 65.5 pass rush grade, and a 71.2 coverage grade. So this is a guy that, in my opinion, you need in that secondary as well. And when I say that, he's a cheetah that dropped back into the secondary. This is a guy that you need on the field because he's just exceptional. He does things exceptionally. And you saw this in 2023, according to his PFF grades, where he played 475 snaps, right? So he played a lot of snaps for Oklahoma last year. You saw this, and you saw him towards the end of the season really start to progress, really start to figure it out and get better, especially in the tackling and in the pass rush grade. So Kendel Dolby, I think this is a guy that he's going to be a phenomenal player in Brent Venables' defense. Getting him back is huge. And if he has a great season next year, I'm not saying this is a guy that's going to be a first or second round draft pick, but he can go in the NFL draft. And I think he has a spot on an NFL roster. Now, looking at, some of the other decisions that Oklahoma's waiting on, they're still waiting on R. Mason Thomas. Obviously, they got the news from Robert Spears Jennings that he will be returning. So the question is, does R. Mason Thomas return? And if he doesn't, what does Oklahoma do? Because right now you feel like you are going out there, you're trying to get Marvin Jones Jr. out of the transfer portal to play on the opposite side. Obviously, there's still a lot of questions on whether PJ Adebayor can step up. You have questions on whether Danny Okoye can be the next great dude at that defensive end position. So many people love what he's able to bring. And so, I think that is the question, right? I think if you're the staff at this point, if you don't have a clear indication of whether R. Mason Thomas is coming back, you have to be able to go out there and you have to recruit defensive ends as a break in case of emergency. So obviously, I think Oklahoma fans want Marvin Jones Jr., the former 5-star that almost ended up at Oklahoma, literally almost committed to Oklahoma. And if Jamar Cain was still on the staff, potentially still would have been a part of the squad. Marvin Jones Jr. ended up potentially taking a visit to Texas. I heard that he was at dinner with Sark, and if that's true, and he took that visit to Texas, that's going to be hard to beat. Texas is still in the playoff, guys, and I think that's going to go a long way in recruiting for Texas's efforts. Now, he was supposed to take a visit to Penn State, and I heard that visit is no longer happening. So maybe that's good news in Oklahoma's eyes, because technically you can't commit while you're on campus. So maybe he'll leave campus. Maybe the Oklahoma Sooners will pick up a commitment from Marvin Jones Jr. We'll have to watch that. But you've also got Westmoreland, the UTEP defensive end. I think he's a stud, right? If Mason doesn't come back, I think that's a guy that you go out there and you get. And I don't think you miss a beat with a guy like that. But R. Mason Thomas is so dang talented. He comes back. I think he's a day 2 dude, right? I don't know if he's a day 1. I think his height kind of sets him back there, but a day 1 dude all the way. Now, when you look at the rest of the transfer portal news, Oklahoma did miss out on Ethan O'Connor. Ethan O'Connor ended up committing to the Miami Hurricanes, and really this just came down to Miami. They dropped the bag. And, Oklahoma, like, they're willing to play the NIL game, but they're only willing to play it to a certain extent. Doesn't make sense to overpay for guys or pay too much and not be able to add additional depth there. So he ends up going to Miami, and the question now is, what does Oklahoma do at the cornerback position? Who do they go after? Who's the target? And Takario Davis was a name that we had thrown out for a while. Arizona, he went in the portal last year, was a name that we talked about as well. But it sounds like he's going to go reunite with Jed Fish out at Washington. And so, there's really not a whole lot of other names out there outside of one that I'm watching, but I don't know if he's on Oklahoma's radar. Jordan Shaw. He's a 6'1", 173-pound freshman out of Washington. This past season had, he's redshirt freshman, not true freshman. This past season had 37 total tackles, 21 solos, 1 fumble recovery, 6 pass breakups. So Jordan Shaw, in my opinion, had a pretty elite year. When you look at his coverage grade, 69.5, 75.6 tackling grade, average to 69.4 defensive grade. And this was in the Big Ten Conference, going up against teams like an Indiana, who threw the ball really well, a USC, a Penn State, Oregon, Louisville. So he played against formidable opponents that would make you think Jordan Shaw could be a big-time pickup if Oklahoma wanted to go after him. Obviously, he's got the size, so I think that's one of the things that we could check the box for. But if they don't go after a guy like Jordan Shaw, if nobody enters the portal from, say, a Notre Dame or Georgia or any of these teams that are in the playoffs or that just exited the playoffs, I don't know if they take anybody else until maybe the spring and see who hops in there. I think you do like what you have in your cornerback room with some of the young guys like Newcomb and Devon Jordan and Jacoby Johnson, who I felt like had a decent bowl game. So we're just going to kind of watch and see what's going to happen with the cornerback position at Oklahoma. I think a lot of it's still going to be dependent on, is Jay Valai still your cornerbacks coach come the 2025 season? But Sooner Nation, I want to hear from y'all. So join the discussion. Jump in the comments below. Give me your thoughts. And if you guys have not already, make sure you hit that like and hit that subscribe button.